Monsters Mono Black Devotion, the number 5 overall seed and number 2 overall seed here in Repp and VanMeter. That means Repp will be on the play, and we'll see if VanMeter can overcome Mono Black Devotion. Again, we've had a lot of awesome stories this weekend. Joe Lissette qualifying for the Players' Championship. We're going to punch another ticket later today. We're also going to crown an invitational champion. But VanMeter, who was the story of Season 2 as he's qualified for our Players' Championship, it could be time to shave the beard.
Playing a deck that could definitely take advantage of Wooded Foothills and Bloodstained Mire.
That's true as well, as Elvish Mystic will die to ultimate price. We're underway here in the finals. It's a Temple of Abandon. Take a look at the top card, Will Chris. And you know, I will say the addition of Goblin Rabblemaster and the subtraction of Courser Crewfix probably plays a big role in this matchup for Chris.
I have to imagine that the Rabblemaster does improve things a bit, because if it gets into play one turn with the shields down, that means Devour Flesh might effectively be off for the rest of the game. And in this matchup, the jump player needs to be aggressive anyway. You can draw some cards off of Courser Crewfix, but that doesn't necessarily help you in the long term.
It's a Thoughtseize here from Repp. He will see a copy of Xenagos the Reveler, a Goreclan Rampager, a Stormbred Dragon, and a couple of lands, Overgrown Tomb, Stomping Ground, and a Forest. And as he does get out his paper to write that down, you will note that Repp on his second turn played a copy of Mutavault. That is not a swamp. And what that means is there's a very realistic shot here that he does not have a third land in his hand.
Or that the third land he has is a Mutavault or possibly his one Urborg. But normally the deck wants to curve out on Swamp, 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 especially Peter's list with 4 copies of Nightveil Spectre. So it does indicate that there could be something very wrong with his draw.
And he does just pass the turn back. VanMeter will draw a card. It's a copy of Bluchronos. VanMeter will play an Overgrown Tomb tapped, pass the turn back over to Repp. Repp draws his card for the turn. It is not a land. It is a Pack Rat, however, and that's going to come into play. So VanMeter will draw. This is a copy of Mizium Mortars. Timely.
And as predicted, the second land being a Mutavault does indicate there's something wrong.
Now, Bluchronos can certainly snipe this Pack Rat if Repp does not have a land to make another Pack Rat, but he did draw a land, not only to make a Pack Rat, but to also cast the Hero's Downfall in his hand. So a big draw there for Peter.
For sure.
And there is that.
I do like Chris playing the Bluchronos last turn. If Peter misses and doesn't have a removal spell, then you just get to fight, which is the highest upside play. And even if Peter makes his third land drop, you can probably overpower the Pack Rat with the tools that he has in his hand, especially since he's not far away from just overloading that Mortars anyway. So,
and that's actually where I think Chris is going with this game, right? Is you make a couple Pack Rats, that's cool. You know, you miss your land drops, you make some Rats, and I overload them all away, and you're really kind of wasting your turns. The big problem here for Chris, I think, is if a 4th land shows up for Repp, he might be a little bit soft to a card like Desecration Demon because his Xenagos is gone.
Setting aside the Doom Blades and Heroes Downfalls of the world, I believe it's Mono Black's best tool in the matchup. Desecration Demon's just bigger than the stuff that John Monsters brings to the table. The removal that John Monsters has doesn't really touch it with the exception of a couple Dread boards that Chris has in his list.
Here's Rabblemaster. So that's going to come down. Threaten to make a Goblin here.
True or false? This is better than Courser Crewfix would be in the same spot. The answer is true.
It looks weird for Chris to cut Courser, but Rabblemaster has demonstrated its power not only in the Rabble Red deck, but now it's starting to do so in this deck as well. See if Repp wants to block here, because VanMeter does have a Goreclan Rampager in his hand. There's a Hero's Downfall. Going to take down the Flyer.
If I'm Peter, I'm not getting too fancy here. He cannot afford to risk a Rampager. I don't even think he can afford to risk a post-combat Mizium Mortars on the Mutavault, even if Chris doesn't have a Rampager.
And there's Mizium Mortars to take care of that annoying Pack Rat. So Repp will draw a card. It's a copy of Desecration Demon. Oddly enough, Chris's deck is a little bit better against Desecration Demon than I thought, because normally you think a Xenagos is getting the job done, but old Rabblemaster here can lock it down too.
This Rabblemaster going unchecked is big time trouble for Peter, much more so than a Courser Crewfix, even if Chris was drawing lands off of it.
Looks like Repp does have a Bile Blight to take care of that though. So problem solved. And it looks like it may be time to attack from 1 here.
But now he has some Devour Flesh insurance, and he can tap down a Desecration Demon effectively for free once.
Goreclan Rampager going to show up to the party here for VanMeter. Repp is at 12. Repp draws his card. It's a copy of Grey Merchant of Asphodel. You can see Repp's hand right now. He's got 3 copies of Desecration Demon in his hand, but he will deploy a Pack Rat and pass the turn back over to VanMeter. VanMeter will draw a card. He's got at least 1 Rampager over there. He may have 2, and he is serving in.
That I would call the
Okie dokie.
I said I would have called that the Desecration Demon last turn of the Grey Merchant last turn to be a reverse top deck. Most of Peter's lands and spells are good draws in that scenario. That's one of the few bad ones. And now he's dead.
2 Gore Clan Rampagers, Blood Rush style, on the Gore Clan Rampager that was attacking. That's 12 exactly. That means Chris VanMeter does win game number 1 here over Peter Repp. Jund Monsters up a game over Mono Black Devotion. VanMeter is 1 game away. Before we take a look at the sideboards, we're coming back to the booth because it is trivia time. Mr. Sullivan, do you want the question or the rules?
The rules. I already asked a question this morning with Matthias.
Fine. Fine.
Okay.
I'm ready.
All right. Cedric over here, he's going to ask you a question. Tweet your answer at SCG Live, hashtag SCG Premium. Of the correct responses, one will be selected at random for a full year of Star City Games premium content. It's about accuracy and not speed, so do not worry about submitting first, just accurately. Please bear in mind, this giveaway is run at the sole discretion of StarCityGames.com, and Twitch TV is in no way affiliated with giveaways on its streams.
Star City Games is running multiple Grand Prix this year. We've got one in Orlando. We've also got one in New Jersey because we're coming back.
Of course.
We coming back, baby. I can't wait. However,
Legacy Grand Prix.
Yeah, that's going to be so good. It's going to be so good.
Sends the heart aflutter. I cannot wait.
We've also got a Grand Prix in Q1 of next year. Again, we have one in Orlando. We've got one in New Jersey. The question is, where is the Grand Prix in Q1 of next year? And if you can name that city, hashtag the answer with the hashtag of SCG Premium. Make sure you're following SCG Live, and we will announce both the answer and the winner at the conclusion of our final round. As we do head back to the match, we'll take a look at the sideboards here. Again, Repp will be on the play. You'll see 3 Lifebane Zombies, 2 Dark Betrayals, a Hero's Downfall, 3 Pharika Skurs, 2 Erebos God of the Dead, and 4 copies of Duress. Lifebane's pretty obvious.
Lifebane, pretty straightforward here. The 4th copy of Hero's Downfall, pretty straightforward here. I don't think he's going to want to go so far as to bring in Duress, even though the Planeswalkers are among the best cards in Chris's deck for the matchup. Only 11 spells in the main deck. So I don't think we're going to see anything much more complicated than just the additional removal spells and Lifebane Zombie.
Chris's side, 3 Mistcutter Hydras, 2 Golgari Charms, Magma Spray, Putrefy, Ultimate Prize, Bow and Nylea, Vraska the Unseen, and Mizian Mortars, all as singletons, along with 2 copies of Rakdos' Return and 2 Flames of the Firebrand.
Well, I do like the Vraska in this matchup, the Ultimate Price, and the Putrefy quite a bit. They are good answers to Desecration Demon, which is enemy number 1 from Chris's side of the table. Past that, there are arguments for some of the more narrow cards. Rakdos' Return could be good in a protracted game, although Mono Black Devotion is generally pretty well equipped to play out his hand. Flames of the Firebrand does answer Nightveil Spectre, but that's probably too narrow to bring in. I think the rest of these cards are kind of non-starters. Golgari Charm does answer Underworld Connections and can be used to fizzle removal spells, but I think Chris is basically going to want to stick with just having the additional answer to Desecration Demon, because that's the most threatening card in Peter's deck.
Game 2 underway here shortly.
Now, we have seen this before. Chris has been in the finals of a game.
Yep.
So
it's not over until it's actually over.
For all you fans of Greek tragedies out there, this is still in play. But Chris 1 game away from finally getting this done.
As I told people when I was in the booth with Matthias last round before we actually took our break, the last time Chris won an Open, do you remember?
Last time Chris won an Open, it was here. It was an invitational here, right?
It was during the Team Sealed weekend here. Two years ago.
Okay.
He beat Owen in the finals, and then Owen, Huey, and Reed ended up winning the Team Sealed Open.
Okay.
In this room.
Yep.
Probably playing in the same area.
Yep, most likely.
Our
feature match area is always the same.
Yeah, it's right over there. And that's where he beat Owen in the finals with Junk Reanimator. Owen was playing Jund, of course, as he's been known to do. And he was able to beat one of the very best players in the world to win his last Open. And we're going to see if he can do it with Jund actually this time instead of Junk. And if he can finally get the job done 2 years later. It was in June 2 years ago.
The top 8 to win ratio over the last 2 years has been pretty incredible.
Yep.
I mean, Chris has regularly been making the elimination rounds of these events, but hasn't been able to get it done. And it would be fitting if he's able to do it with Jund Monsters, which is a deck he's played for the better part of a year, with the update of Rabble Master, which is very, very interesting for this deck to move to. And I think could signal, as I mentioned with you yesterday, that Rabble Master will be showing up all over the place going forward.
Oh, yeah. Almost assuredly. And again, it's funny because he was able to get the job done with Junk, a deck that he knew very, very well. Very well.
Imagine you're playing Show and Tell in Legacy, hypothetically.
Okay.
Sneak and Show.
Okay.
Your opponent cuts all their creature removal against you. They're bringing in all their, like, you know, their duresses and their flusterstorms. And you're just turn 1 Tomb, Lotus Petal, Rabble Master. What happens in that game?
You probably win.
Probably gonna. I'm not saying that's good. I'm saying there's something there, and that's in Legacy Sneak and Show.
Yeah.
So I think there's potential for this card to show up all over the place.
You can get a little creative. Initially, I thought that this card would be pretty bad in Goblins. I might be backtracking.
Might be backtracking?
I'm not going to say it's going to, you know, turn the world upside down. It still dies to removal and True Nemesis and GTA and all that good stuff, but it's definitely better than I originally thought it was.
Well, it dies to removal is sort of a tough critique to leverage against a creature, because then, well, you just don't play any of them. Which I guess some people, they do that, but...
Nah, man. Give me those creatures. All my goblins die. Who cares?
They're just going to die anyway.
Yeah. Either they're going to die or you're going to die.
Right.
It's all good. No,
But,
I'm a fan of the Rabble Master. Also, it gives me a little camera time.
Right. You and I are going to die one day, but we still try to do the best job that we can in the
Yeah,
meantime.
for sure.
Same thing with creatures in Magic.
Yeah.
They have a finite shelf life,
They
but
do.
you might as well try. What
Absolutely.
else is there?
You should cast them. They're quite good nowadays.
You can't take it with you, you know?
No, you can't. They are quite powerful. Both players shuffling up here for a pretty intense game number 2. Again, if VanMeter wins this one, the beard is gone, but Repp can play spoiler, as so many have before.
And if there's a deck, you know, where you're down a game, but you're still feeling confident, it's got to be this one. You just have so many broad strokes answers to a million different things.
Yeah, I mean, you're playing arguably the most powerful deck in the format, so you got to be happy. You know, not thrilled that you have a loss, but besides that, you've definitely got a real shot to come back here. And I do like that he is actually straight mono black, again, with 20 swamps, 4 Mutavaults, and 1 Urborg. I don't really have much of a problem with the splash, but I've always been a fan of just the mono black version.
I definitely playing aggressive decks. I fear the mono black version much more than I fear any splash build.
Oh.
And I think mono black's Devotion's worst matchup is typically against beatdown decks. So I want to shore that up as much as possible. There's some metagames, you know, if the metagame's really Domri Detention Sphere heavy, you know that Abrupt Decay is going to be the best card in your deck. That's fine, go ahead and splash. But I think in the dark, I would err towards the monocolor build.
Yeah. There are great reasons to splash, of course. White gives you Blood Baron and Banishing Light and Elspeth. Green gives you Abrupt Decay and Golgari Charm, which is what Jarvis you lost with in the semifinals. Blue, I thought that splash was bad. I was wrong. Negate and Notion Thief hanging out there. Also Nightveil Spectre. Looks pretty good there when you have the blue splash. Hit some nice cards against those blue-white control decks. So all the splashes certainly do have merit. But Repp is just going with mono black this weekend, and it's clearly working out well for him. Number 2 overall seed and in the finals.
Not even touching any temples. Just 20 swamp, 1 Urborg, 4 Mutavault.
Repp will lay out his opening hand. VanMeter taking a look at his already. Again, Repp will be on the play here as he did lose game number 1.
I think I prefer 26 lands in my Black Devotion list, but, you know,
I
still like the straightforwardness.
I've seen 25, I've seen 26. If I played a 26 one, I'd play 1 temple.
Okay.
Yeah. Spice it up.
Spice it up.
Yeah. Repp giving that hand a long look. Is he happy with what he sees? VanMeter looks relatively confident. Repp doesn't look thrilled. It looks like he's going to lead off with a Mutavault. That might be a touch telling. VanMeter just going to play an overrun Tomb. Pass the turn back. Repp draws a card. I'm not surprised to see that he has a swamp in his hand, though. Maybe he just wants to fire up and get in for 2. Yeah.
This goes without saying, but I like it.
Yeah. I had a feeling you might.
Get your licks in while you can.
There's a Stomping Ground tap. VanMeter will pass the turn back yet again. So VanMeter looks like he has a relatively reactive hand. There's another Mutavault. And here comes some more licks. VanMeter going to go down to 16 now.
And these chip shots do matter. The game can come down to Chris getting a board presence and then Gray Merchant being the way for Peter to win from there.
They absolutely matter. There's a Rabble Master. That one matters too.
True or false? This is better than Corsair Crewfix should be in the same spot.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the Rabble Master. The Eric Smith token going to come across. Repp's going to go down to 19. Repp will draw a card. Looks like he has another swamp in his hand. A couple of them, actually. So there's his 4th land. Might be time for maybe Mutavault to slow down a little bit. Yep, I had a feeling. VanMeter will draw. That's a copy of Dreadboard there. Another Rabble Master, too.
I would be surprised if Chris deployed the second Rabble Master out of fear of Bio Blight.
It's a little risque.
Especially since these Rabble Masters just demand an immediate answer. So you get to find out soon enough if it's good to go anyway.
Trigger. Beatdowns.
And even in this spot where Peter has 2 Mutavaults back to block the 2 tokens, it seems like, maybe Rabble Master's not great here. The thing is, do you really want to animate those Mutavaults and block against a deck with Rampagers and Dreadbores and Mortars and all that stuff?
Well, you can see the Putrefying Chris's hand, too.
Yeah.
Here's the attack. There's a trigger on the Rabble Master. That's a Mutavault activation. It's going to block one of these, or at least try to. Now, Hero's Downfall. We'll take care of that. See if Chris is okay with this exchange.
But it's very likely he has. This allows Chris to do something awesome either right now inside of combat or after combat.
And he's okay with letting this stuff happen. At least the Hero's Downfall. That'll happen as well. Chris is, he could get hasty with the Putrefy there and kill the Mutavault, but he's basically saying, I would rather save this Putrefy for something better.
If he doesn't have a second answer in his hand for Desecration Demon, I don't think there's any way that he would use it. It looks like he has Dreadbore plus a Putrefy, but still.
I mean, clearly he's all right with that exchange. He definitely could have stopped it from happening. There's a Dreadbore. He's going to go after the Mutavault now, saving the Putrefy. And now we'll pass the turn back. Again, saving Mortars as well. How he uses the removal spells here are very, very important.
There's a lot of different cards he has to play around, and he also needs to plan out several turns in advance of how he wants to, line up his mana, how he wants to curve out. A lot of considerations.
I imagine he's probably saving the Mortars for a situation where Repp has 5 lands and can play, play Pack Rat and then activate a Pack Rat. He'd rather overload Mortars in that spot. Here's a Desecration Demon. Problem here, I believe, is Chris is a little less mana efficient at this point. If he uses a Putrefy or a Mortars there on the Mutavault, this turn he can play Goblin Rabble Master pre-combat. He plays Rabble Master. You see the players are kind of going back and forth through like the Desecration Demon trigger, and I don't believe that he announced it when he played it. The players do shortcut in situations like that, so.
It doesn't matter. Chris isn't sacking his dude.
Yeah, pretty much.
Play on.
Yeah. And you see Chris kind of explain that to the judge there, so I imagine we will move forward here in just a second.
Even if Chris misses the trigger, it's not, or the trigger is declared, it's not like it's mandatory for Chris to sag his token all of a sudden.
Stormbreath Dragon the draw.
So this is where using the Dreadbore into the Putrefy is a bit of a cost.
Yep.
Because this turn Chris could have been able to play a Rabble Master and Dreadbore the Desecration Demon.
He's much more efficient that way.
Yep.
Now he's a little, off curve, off kilter.
Still not bad. He's got it all. I'm sure that he wanted to save. He uses removal in such a way on purpose, but there is a cost for this sequencing.
And the inability to just be efficient and play 2 spells in 1 turn, that's where it comes back to hurt you a little bit, because now his turn could just be Putrefy and attack for 1, and that turn is nowhere near as good as Dreadbore your guy, play Rabble Master, make a token, attack you for 2, and now you have to deal with this Rabble Master.
Yeah. It's
a world of difference. Here's a Blood Crypt. Might be going to Dragon territory now. Yes, sir. It looks like he may just pass the turn back.
Yeah, I think he's going for a 6 turn here of removal spell plus something else.
Another Swamp Drawn there for Repp.
Chris using his entire turn to Putrefy the Demon seems a little anemic. If it's the only answer in his hand, the risk here is if Peter has a Thoughtseize, then suddenly you're just staring down the Demon. But I like Chris trying to be as mana efficient as possible. He's got, a lot of expensive cards in his hand and a bunch of 3s, so deploying your expensive stuff to try to set up a turn where you're casting multiple 3-mana spells makes a lot of sense.
Mutavault's going to get animated. Desecration Demon Trigger will go on the stacks. Shut that down. Does not want to take 6. We'll take 2, though, down to 12. And I believe this is the turn where we'll probably see Putrefy on your creature and Rabble Master get you for 1.
And, you know, again, we were kind of laughing a little bit about Peter getting in those early licks with Mutavault.
Oh, they matter.
Chris is on 12 now. 6 from Mutavault, 2 from an untapped dual land now, 4 from an untapped dual land. There's a Mutavault still in play.
There's the Rabble Master. That'll make a Goblin in for 1. Repp's going to go down to 17. But no, these chip shots, they certainly add up for Mutavault. That's why Mutavault's such a great card. One of the many reasons. Draw here is another Swamp for Repp. We'll fire up Mutavault. Trigger. Good to go. Well, we're going to see a Putrefy in just a minute here. Take care of that Desecration Demon. And I think we'll see the 2 damage come across.
That's one of those spots where maybe Chris would have just sacrificed if the Mutavault was left on D because the token's not doing anything anyway.
Yep.
But once the Mutavault's coming in, the hand's a little bit forced.
Lifebane Zombie. Chris is going to lose his Pelucranos. To show the Mortars.
And that was his draw last turn.
Yep. I'm sure he was hoping never to get tagged by Lifebane Zombie.
It's hard, especially now that Courser of Krufix is Rabble Master in his list. But can still happen.
Question now is, does he want to Mortars that Lifebane Zombie and get rolling with the Rabble Master? Looks, the answer is yes. Trigger that. Come on in here for 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 points of damage. There's a Stomping Ground, kick it back over. Repp will draw a card. Right now, I believe he has all Swamps in his hand. See what he can find. Didn't get a great look. I think it may have been a copy of Thoughtseize, potentially.
Desecration Demon.
Mutavault feeling frisky? It is. Ooh, all right. Push it to 6.
Oh, it's
Ultimate price.
And I like the attack here from Peter. Game is basically in a racing situation where he's already ahead and he wants to make sure that Grey Merchant remains a lethal draw.
Let's see what VanMeter draws for the turn. He's going to attack, maybe. Somebody's getting cold feet.
I mean, this race is not great for Chris right now, but holding back on defense is also not very good.
Yeah.
It's hard to double block against a deck that has so many removal spells. A single block, a chump block in the spot isn't really doing anything for Chris. So an attack with both may be the best of multiple bad options right now.
Blood Crypt tapped, pass it back over to Repp. Repp will draw a card. Didn't get a great look at it, but it was a spell. He's coming in. Chris is going to double block immediately. And all VanMeter can do is pass a turn back. I do think it may have been a Thoughtseize. That's a Xenagos. That's a good start.
I was about to say, Chris is really hoping to draw a Planeswalker here,
Yep.
and that's the best one.
There's an attack for 2. The heat is on now. There's a Swamp for Repp. All you can do is pass a turn back. VanMeter quickly draws a card. It's time for another Satyr token in for 4. Repp's down to 5.
Just one more turn.
Yep. VanMeter with a copy of Sylvan Carry added. He'll kick it back over to Repp. Repp will draw a card. It's a Nightveil Spectre.
Nightveil's fine here. This lets him survive,
Yep.
and Grey Merchant's lethal if Chris misses.
Another one. Spectre, of course, is going to block once. Repp goes down to 1. VanMeter has to fade a Grey Merchant in combination with the Nightveil Spectre attack. Take a draw. Bile Blight keeps them alive. Here's an attack. Trigger. Blood Crypt. Repp has a Duress. He will cast it. VanMeter will show a Mana Confluence. Pass it back. VanMeter draws.
I don't like making a token here. The only thing that allows Peter to survive here is Bile Blight. You want a token after combat.
It's exactly Bile Blight, right?
He has 2 cards in hand, but what are the odds here that Peter's on 2 removal spells given the way the last couple turns have played out?
Pretty low. pretty low. You see Chris pause here.
It just doesn't line up. But, you know, if Peter dropped 2 kill spells on the table right now, you'd be stunned if you're in Chris's seat.
You can see he's in the tank about it. Yep, that's a good play.
Way to go.
Yep. There's a blight, and he's doing it before he attacks because of Gorkline Rampager.
Yep.
Very smart. On Repp's side as well. Does not want to lose to the Blood Rush. So there those go.
Sharp play.
On both sides. Chris will play the Mana Confluence. He'll pass the turn back. Repp can still close it out with the Grey Merchant. He'll draw a card at 1 life. Will he attack?
And now with a Blood Crypt in play, he's also drawing live off of Chris's deck potentially as well.
He will attack. VanMeter's down to 2. It's 2-1. Take a look at the top card. It's a copy of Vraska. You can tell both players want this one.
Chris just...
That is it!
Wow.
Chris VanMeter
What a game.
wins this match over Peter Repp 2-0. Jund Monsters takes down Mono Black Devotion, and for our first open here for Season 4, the beard is clear. It's time to shave that bad boy. It is over.
We'll see how that actually happens, because he might have built up too much equity now with that beard power stuff. He might be priced into keeping this, but in any event, congratulations. A great match there, and Chris there, I really liked not making that Cedar before combat.
He sniffed it out.
He sniffed it out. You know, what odds are higher? My opponent has Bioblade in hand, or my opponent is sitting on 2 copies of Doomblade? Definitely way more likely that Bioblade's the card in their hand, given the way those last couple turns played out. Chris, as you